Here's the latest research news from FourSight. Curious to see if executives really do think different, researchers Gerard Puccio and Selçuk Acar delved into the FourSight database of more than 80,000 thinking profiles and found some fascinating results. Prevailing wisdom warned, if you're looking to climb the corporate ladder, don't show overt signs of creativity. Thinking outside the box could keep you out of top management. Those warnings were actually citing real research that claimed organizations may face a bias against selecting the most creative individuals as leaders in favor of selecting leaders who would preserve the status quo and stick with feasible but relatively unoriginal solutions. Researchers Puccio and Acar were skeptical. As professors at the International Center for Studies in Creativity at Buffalo State, they taught creative problem solving to artists, teachers, researchers, social workers, and business people. Based on their experience, organizational leaders were highly creative. Their thinking was affirmed by an IBM study in which 1,500 CEOs answered the question, what's the most important leadership quality? Creativity was their number one answer. Far from shunning it, executives seemed to champion creativity. But did they themselves think different? To investigate, Puccio and Acar used the FourSight Thinking Profile, an assessment developed by Puccio that measures a person's preference for the 4 essential stages of the universal creative process. When we're faced with a challenge, we instinctively clarify the problem, generate ideas, develop solutions, and implement them. We all do all 4 types of thinking, but like handedness, our minds play favorites. Most of us have distinct thinking preferences that influence how we approach a challenge. Specifically, clarifiers prefer to focus their attention on existing reality, the facts, data, and understanding the problem at hand. Ideators are more interested in what could exist than what does exist. They like to unleash their imaginations, to dream and explore new possibilities. Developers like to take ideas and engineer precise, practical, and carefully crafted solutions. And implementers? They just want to jump into action and get stuff done. While all 4 stages are critical to creativity, the cognitive style we culturally associate with out-of-the-box thinking is the ideator preference, the idea generator who challenges the status quo. If organizational leaders instinctively reinforce the status quo, one would expect to find they had a low preference for ideating. Puccio and Acar placed the opposite bet. They reasoned, if successful executives need big-picture, visionary, novel thinking, then we should see higher than usual ideator preferences among top-level leaders. Here's what they found. In the FourSight database of nearly 80,000 profiles, they collected more than 2,000 non-management responses, more than 2,000 responses from supervisors, department heads, and middle managers, and more than 1,700 responses from directors, vice presidents, and executives. Then they graphed the scores, one cognitive style at a time. On the y-axis, you see the level of cognitive preference. On the x-axis, you see the organizational levels, starting with non-management and moving up to executive. The blue line represents the clarifier preference. Remember, clarifiers are the ones who like facts, data, and reality. You can see that clarifier scores stay pretty constant across organizational levels. This green line represents the developer preference. Developers, remember, like to engineer precise solutions. Once again, we see a relatively constant preference across organizational levels. Now here's where things get interesting. This is the implementer line in red. Here you see a distinct upward trend. As you move up the organization, it seems you'll encounter a stronger preference for the implementer's let's do it approach. And now for the ideator. It's the orange line, which starts low and goes straight up, making a nearly 3-point leap from non-management to executive. That's nearly 3 times the gain of any other preference. So Puccio and Acar's hypothesis was right. Executives do show a higher preference for the ideate stage of the creative process. Now, FourSight measures preference, not ability. So This high ideator preference shows that executives really enjoy cognitive tasks like looking at the big picture, seeking novel approaches. And like most high ideators, they're probably happy leaving the details to others. Good leaders come in all different thinking profiles. Just because leadership seems to call for a lot of ideating doesn't mean that low ideators can't be leaders. Research shows that all of these skill sets to clarify, ideate, develop, and implement can be developed. So Puccio and Ajar have settled the question of whether creativity exists in upper-level management. But their research raises new questions. Does a person's ideator score rise as they get promoted up the organization? Or are people born as high ideators just more likely to be leaders? And how exactly can the rest of us develop that mental muscle for ideation? We look forward to future research to find the answers.